The world's most remote place is called the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility, aka Point Nemo. Nemo is a Latin word which means nobody. That's interesting. It's home to the spacecraft cemetery, known more formally as the South Pacific Ocean Uninhabited Area. Not only does it have an abundance of names, but it is also the final resting place for hundreds of spacecraft that have reached the end of their usefulness. The area contains between 250 and 300 various spacecraft, including the defunct space station Mir, M-I-R. Huh, wild, right? And the International Space Station, the ISS, currently up in space right now, will probably end up with the cemetery plot here upon its retirement. And he's got some nice graphics here. If you guys have never heard of this particular thing, well, you're in for a treat because this is definitely a wild one. There's the map, and you can see it's off the coast of New Zealand by about nearly 5,000 kilometers. To the east, it's off the coast of Chile by about 4,200 kilometers to the west. Yeah, Antarctica, nearly 2,700 kilometers. It's basically way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. Literally, when you say BFE or the middle of nowhere or whatever it is, this is exactly what you're talking about. This is exactly the point. And so there apparently is this particular space now, which is, again, oddly enough, the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility. Okay, which is wild enough just to sound all by itself, okay, is one to make you go, well, that's peculiar. That's a peculiar thing to call it, right? Am I right? Okay, so beyond that, it gets even a little more weird, right? Because and I didn't know this. Now there's some weirdness with this particular spot. So not only, number one, have humans actually never seen this, never explored this. As far as we're aware, no human being has ever been at Point Nemo, as it's known, the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility, ever. It's never happened, okay? Which is strange, right? That we would have never seen this other than satellite photos, things like this, maybe planes flying over, whatever, or maybe not even that. Who knows? I guess who really knows, right? But that's the story. The story is there have been no human to ever come close. Well, within, I don't know, several hundred kilometers or something. I don't know, something to this effect, right? But anyway, so I was reading about this, and there's also some weird anomaly type stuff that's happened around that neck of the woods, which is incredibly wild. Specifically, number one, well, let's just go to the right up here. Let me read this properly so you guys can get the true full aspect of what this actually means. Let's see, let's just do it straight from here because the headache situation. All right, so the Dreaming Deep, I'm calling this. Now, a shadow architect of nightmares, and I'll explain as we go, but check it out. So Point Nemo, known as the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility, is the most remote location on Earth, situated in the vast expanse of the South Pacific Ocean. It is so isolated that the closest land masses are more than 1,400 miles away. That's even kilometers, I believe. This is a faux pas by GPT there. And the nearest humans are often the astronauts orbiting above on the International Space Station. Now think about that. So if you're in this particular spot, the Oceanic Pole of Inaccessibility, the closest humans to you would be, I guess if the ISS was on that particular hemisphere, it would be the astronauts on the International Space Station. Strange, no? I thought that was, whoa, weird. Anyway, so no human has ever set foot in this distant point, a place where the horizon is a continuous, unbroken line of water. The concept of such profound isolation is, of course, unsettling, invoking a sense of eerie emptiness and the unknown. Imagine a place so remote that it escapes the touch of humanity, a place where our presence is nothing more than a whisper carried by the wind across the endless waves. Now, this spot, devoid of human interference, could harbor mysteries beyond our comprehension. And as we delve into blah, 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 it gets into some AI writing type stuff. Now, the weird part is, as usual, I start with the seed idea, which was this in particular, Point Nemo. And, things kind of developed quickly because I started digging into this a little bit, Point Nemo itself. And it turns out that not only is this the most inaccessible point on planet Earth, it is said that no human has ever actually visited this within any kind of shouting distance whatsoever. But another aspect comes to mind with this, which is incredibly strange, as there's a list here of strange things, and they just talk about sea monsters, of course, and right, if they were hiding, or even alien vessels. If you're going to hide somewhere in the ocean, wouldn't it be right here in the most inaccessible point, and all the rest, right? Which of course brings to mind a whole bunch of things. But here's some things I didn't know about this, and you may have heard of these things. Now, back in 1997, there was actually something called the bloop. And many of you maybe have heard of this. It's an underwater anomaly. Okay, an underwater anomaly. I'll tell you the coordinates in a sec. So bloop was an ultra low frequency, high amplitude underwater sound detected by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, in 1997. By 2012, earlier speculation that the sound originated from a marine mammal was replaced by the NOAA's description of the sound as being consistent with noises generated via non-tectonic cryoseisms, whatever that word is, originating from glacial movements such as ice calving or through seabed gouging by ice. All right, so some sort of glacial movement. Okay. So weirdly enough, right? So the sound source was roughly triangulated 50 degrees south, 100 degrees west, a remote point in the Pacific Ocean just west of the southern tip of South America. The sound was detected by the Equatorial Pacific Ocean Autonomous Hydrophone Array, a system of hydrophones primarily used to monitor. Okay, so anyway, the sound rose in frequency over about 1 minute and was of sufficient amplitude to be heard on multiple sensors. So first there was, 1997, there was some talk of sea monsters and, things like this. And as I've said when we started here, if a sea monster was going to hide anywhere, surely this would be the spot, right? But they heard this. Let's see. I'm not sure if it'll play it straight from the website. Let me check to see if this actually comes through. And if it does, cool. If it doesn't, sorry about that. It's only 11 seconds long. But if not, you guys can go to the Wikipedia page and press this play yourself and listen to what this sounds like. But one sec. Let's see if we can actually hear this. And we cannot. So sorry about that. We're not dialed in to have the browser do its thing. Okay. So anyway, it just sounds like a bloop, kind of like that, but very, very, very loud. Loud enough to be able to be picked up on the weirdness of this, super, super deep and super, super remote space. Okay. Now, it wasn't exactly identically coming from here, but it was kind of coming from that particular region. Okay. So let's see, where is this? Hold on. Let me find the actual coordinates here. 1 second. So Point Nemo is what's called. Now, you guys all know Point Nemo or the name Nemo. Many of us of the specific, Finding Nemo. It's the most famous thing in modern times with the word Nemo, okay? Because, of course, Disney, the kids, Pixar was it? Whatever the hell it was, right? Finding Nemo. But Nemo, of course, is also the name of the submarine in Jules Verne's, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Is it 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea? I don't know. Anyway, that was a long time ago. But, so... here we go. So the weird part is this specifically. Wait, where do we find it? It is right here. We go. Okay. So the actual coordinates, for those that asked, I see Guide asked what the coordinates are. They are this as follows. Okay. Blah blah blah. Wrongly believed. Okay, I'll actually get that when I can peel it out and not struggle to find the information. Okay, so anyway, the weird part is that when I started looking at this, so not only did I have this weird anomaly that brought up, talk of sea monsters and things like this with the bloop, and you can look this up on Wikipedia, link's going to be in the description down below, and, some of the weird things that kind of came out of it. And they even talked about this being some sort of unknown massive sea creature as part of the speculation that, the bloop was maybe something else, okay, which brings to mind what? Nessie of the sea or something? I don't know, right? Something, the Loch Ness monster of the deep. Look, I don't know. I don't know what Leviathan, you Cthulhu, you pick your poison there. I'm not the arbiter of that truth, as I always say. And that's a fact. Okay. So, but the wild part is that we have this going on. All right. But then there's also some other stuff. So, here you go. So space junk, they've dropped between 250 and 300 spacecraft into this spot, a place where humans have never been, which doesn't that seem a little bit strange to you that we haven't actually explored this area, and yet we're just like, man, there's a lot of ocean there. We'll just drop all of our garbage in that spot, right? Yeah, exactly. Gweets onto me. Gweets onto me. It would be a good remote viewing target. You're onto me. Okay. So here's the deal, right? So here's this from Atlas Obscura, and this is what kind of really started this going. This is from March 8th, 2024, so this is from this year. But there's a few things. So not only do we have the weird thing happening with the bloop and this weird anomaly back in 1997, Nemo is actually in Latin called, translated as nobody, which kind of made me go, oh, well, that's strange. And then it got me looking into a little bit of Lovecraft because there's a Lovecraft connection here. And maybe you didn't know, but let's see. Let's find it from this article because it's fantastic. It's also in my write-up if you want to check that out. But check it out. So decades before Point Nemo was named and before satellites started raining down, of course, H.P. Lovecraft used these lonely waters as the setting for R'lyeh, how you say it, R'lyeh, which of course is where the Nightmare Corpse City, built in measureless eons beyond history by the vast, loathsome shapes that seeped down from the dark stars, which of course is where Cthulhu lies dreaming, okay? So the Call of Cthulhu 1928 is described as a coastline of mingled mud, ooze, and weedy cyclopean masonry, which can be nothing less than the tangible substance of Earth's supreme terror, loathsomely redolent of spheres and dimensions apart from ours, okay? Lovecraft out of way, even though he was a bastard. Don't forget all that too. But in any case, so the point with bringing Lovecraft into this is as void as you get as far as the human space, our terrestrial space, literally the middle of nowhere. The middle of nowhere. Okay. Well, it gets better. So not only is we have the Nemo translates to nobody. But what's up? Shiva is nobody. Is Shiva also nobody? There's also another thing that has another Lovecraft link, and I'll read that to you momentarily here. But so as we get going, just consider this. Consider that there's a place on Earth called Point Nemo that is so far out, they say that nobody has ever actually explored this space, ever. And yet we're raining satellites. We're going to drop the International Space Station in this spot. We're going to do all this stuff, which seems incredibly weird, right? Well, that's cool and all. And of course, H.P. Lovecraft seemed to have sniffed this out all the way back in 1928 when Call of Cthulhu was written and came out, was released, right? So what does that mean? So they say this was discovered about 30 or 40 years ago, except Lovecraft somehow kind of knew not exactly where it was, but maybe he looked on a map and was like, bing, kind of right there. And that's where he did this city. The idea of Cthulhu under the ocean out there where nobody will ever find him in the depths of the void of Earth itself, right? So anyway, so keep that in mind as we go, because we're going to get super weird as we do this. As you know, that's how we do Troubled Minds anyway. But I'm calling this the Dreaming Deep, a shadow architect of nightmares. And when I explain in a moment, you'll get what I mean. But there's some weirdness to this, okay? And of course, it's the natural resonant of Earth herself. We're talking about the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, or Point Nemo. Shout out to UFO Chronicles, Nick Hunter, great stuff, great post on Twitter X, actually inspiring this tonight. And so the deal is this, right? So not only are we sort of raining actual space debris here, old, defunct satellites and things like this, it's also a place where they say nobody's ever actually explored because it's so remote. And even that, oddly enough, that we're going to rain the International Space Station there when it finally dies, that when you're there in that spot, conceptually, because nobody's really been there, I guess we're told, is that the closest human beings to you would be on the International Space Station. Now think about how ridiculously remote that is. Definitely the middle of nowhere. Translates as nobody. Interesting, right? So I dug into the Lovecraft link a little bit and was like, okay, let's check to see if there's anything fascinating that kind of fits into this larger conversation. And you know me and my weirdness, and I talk about Vegas and sort of human resonance and human emotional resonance and things like this. And you take a place like Las Vegas, where it's somewhere 45 to 50 million people visit here every year. It is sort of supercharged with emotion, as we said. People kind of come in hot with the idea that they're going to win some money, and if they don't, they hopefully have a good time and do it responsibly and then go home. But there's definitely this sort of supercharged atmosphere to Las Vegas, okay? And don't worry, I'll bring this back. And so the point I'm bringing up is that, and the reason I'm saying Las Vegas and sort of this emotional resonance of humanity, is that in this particular space, Point Nemo itself, we have the opposite. We have literally null and void human interaction with this space for thousands and thousands of miles in all directions for basically eternity. So put this in your pipe and smoke it as we go, and consider, what does it mean when you have a place so remote on Earth that humans have never visited it? Is it one of those situations where we talk about, primordial nature spirits, things like this? And is this where they go to hide from us, as you would expect those types of things hiding from humans. And again, if you don't believe in nature spirits, just think of the Gaia hypothesis, things like this. As usual, right? Part of the conversation, you got to detach from reality a little bit and consider some ideas that may or may not be on the flying as science would expect. Okay. So anyway, my apologies for that, but hey, it's part of being weird. So think about it that way. Is this one of the deepest spaces of non-human resonance terrestrially we'll ever find and will ever actually be able to achieve, right? So, and I came across this. So I was doing a little Lovecraft delving as part of the thing tonight, and I came across this short poem called Memory. Interesting, right? So we've got a place that translates Nemo, translates to nobody. And then we have a short Lovecraft poem called Memory, and this will bring it all the way back around to primordial nature spirits. Let me read this to you. In the valley of Nis, Nis, the accursed waning moon shines thinly, tearing a path for its light with feeble horns through the lethal foliage of a great upas tree. And within the depths of the valley, where the light reaches not, move forms not meet to be beheld. Rank is the herbage on each slope, where evil vines and creeping plants crawl amidst the stones of ruined palaces, twining tightly about broken columns and strange monoliths, and heaving up marble pavements laid by forgotten hands. And in trees that grow gigantic in crumbling courtyards leap little apes, while in and out of deep treasure vaults writhe poisoned serpents and scaly things without a name. Sounds terrifying. Vast are the stones which sleep beneath the coverlets of dank moss, and mighty were the walls from which they fell. For all time did their builders erect them, and in sooth they yet serve nobly, for beneath them the gray toad makes his habitation. Sounds kind of post-apocalyptic, right? Like there's no humans here. In any case, at the very bottom of the river lies the river Than, Than, the river, okay? Shout out rivers, whose waters are slimy and filled with weeds. From hidden springs it rises, and to subterranean grottos it flows, so that the daemon of the valley knows not why its waters are red, nor whither they are bound. Okay, nature spirits. Now check this out. The genie that haunts the moonbeams spake to the daemon of the valley, saying, quote, I am old and forget much. Tell me the deeds and aspect and name of them who built these things of stone. After the daemon replied, quote, I am memory and am wise in lore of the past, but I too am old. These beings were like the waters of the river Than, not to be understood. Their deeds I recall not, for they were but for the moment. Their aspect I recall dimly, for it was like to that of the little apes in the trees. Their name I recall clearly, for it rhymed with that of the river. These beings of yesterday were called man. So the genie flew back to the thin-horned moon, and the daemon looked intently at a little ape in a tree that grew in a crumbling courtyard. And it's two nature spirits that have been here since the beginning of time, talking to each other, considering what happened with the ruins, the stone ruins, what happened with memory that has leaked so far and been so long gone that even the primordial nature spirits have forgotten, or mostly. In any case, you see what this heads back to. Of course, it heads back to Point Nemo and what may lie beneath the waves. And in that sense, of course, H.P. Lovecraft suggested it was Cthulhu himself in the city called R'lyeh, I believe that's how I pronounce it. It's probably pronounced differently because I'm not a Cthulhu super nerd. I'm just kind of a halfway super Cthulhu weirdo. But you get it. So what's going on down there, and is it possible? So a lot of things here. So what's happening there? Is it again? It's called the point of what's it called? The point of I don't know, middle of nowhere, whatever. I'll get back to this. But so what the hell's going on with this? Is it possible that a place without human resonance for so long could actually be magical in some way? And not just magical in the sense of, old school magic, deep magic from the dawn of time, as we always say, shout out C.S. Lewis, but something a little more, let's say, a little more depth, something with a little more, see what I did there, something with a little more interest in terms of the Gaia hypothesis, and maybe the retreat of the nature spirits themselves from humankind entirely. Anyway, so what the hell's going on with this? Have you heard of this? What's happening at the bottom of Point Nemo? And is it possible with some exploration we actually do find Cthulhu at the bottom in the city of R'lyeh? And that's what's on my mind tonight. Just a normal struggle bus minds, troubled minds. And yeah, you tell me. There's a lot of things to this that are kind of creepy, that are actually kind of creepy. And so we begin here at Point Nemo, and of course we go cosmic. But before that, we have to talk nature spirits of the primordial type. Is it possible that a place so deep and so forgotten and so untouched by mankind could be, well, more magical than we ever dreamed?